Hello, I'm Farah, a registered clinical nutritionist, and I'm hosting Fertility Matters with Screen Me. Following my own 9 year infertility journey, I'm determined to help others with everything I know now and to share knowledge with women, men, and LGBTQ audiences to offer the best guidance from medical, holistic, complementary, and support organizations. I'll also be encouraging individuals to talk about their journeys to help others. I really want this to be real, useful, and engaging, a platform for you to contribute to. So if you have ideas, have something to say, or know somebody that does, reach out to me at f.condor@screenme.co.uk. Let's feel connected, feel part of a change, feel part of a huge support network. We are here to hold your hand through your own personal journeys, and we hope to see you happy at the other end. Thanks for joining us.
Hi everyone, welcome to Screen Me Fertility Matters show. Today I've got Sam Pierce from Parachute Nutrition. Sam it helps women pre and postnatally, ensuring optimum health with food, supplements, lifestyle, reduction of toxic environmental exposure, which is really crucially important to deliver long-lasting nourishment, balance and health for mums and babies. That's amazing. So good to see you, Sam. We studied together at CNM, so it's amazing to see how we've all progressed and gone in different directions. I'm really happy that you've agreed to come on the show, and hopefully, we'll hopefully have some real kind of in-depth conversation in the next sort of 35 or 40 minutes. So the first thing I wanted to ask is, why did you choose nutritional therapy in the first place?
Okay, so I went into nutrition because I think at the time I was in a job that I didn't like. I was kind of having my own health issues, and I'd kind of fallen into trying to kind of figure things out for myself. I guess it wasn't working with seeing doctors. I kind of decided to work part-time and then and study part-time. So that's why I went into nutrition, and it completely changed my life. I realized this is definitely what I wanted to do, and I wanted to help other people as well. Not, it helped me, but it helped so many other people, my clients, friends, family, everyone around me. So the reason I wanted to go into pregnancy and fertility postpartum is because I found that when I was studying, I fell pregnant halfway through, and so I kind of had a certain amount of knowledge around prenatal health and nutrition because of what we were studying, but obviously it just gave me that kick to kind of research even further. And so I was going into like midwife appointments and being really frustrated and just not enjoying my midwife appointments. I had a lady that was kind of older, and she'd obviously been doing things a certain way for a long time, and she would always kind of, if there was something that I was asking her, she'd recommend a drug or something that just wasn't aligned with me, and she didn't know anything about nutrition. The only thing I got recommended throughout that whole pregnancy was just take folic acid.
So do you feel that part of the reason why you went into that because you're doing not only just once you're pregnant, which is what happened to you when you fell pregnant, and then you kind of went, oh, right now I need to learn a little bit about this. I need to kind of go, wow, I now am pregnant. So everything I need to know must be going, I must go and read about it. But you're doing, so that was the main reason. And then obviously the care that you got wasn't the care that you felt was most appropriate for you personally. But do you feel a lot of women are like that? So you've got a lot of clients that I'm assuming come to you for that reason. They feel the same as you still now, because you've had 2 children now, I know, Sam, and things have moved on. But I think things in the way that the support for that preconception, for that prenatal care, have they moved on? Do you feel that a lot of people
I don't think, not really. I mean, speaking to clients and friends, it sounds pretty much the same. I mean, this is my daughter's 6, so this would have been 7 years ago pretty much, and I don't feel like it's much different. And I also I guess I kind of noticed when I was going to those appointments, because I was studying nutrition, I had people around me that had children before and they were into nutrition and that kind of side of things. I had people around me that really helped me, I guess, with my journey. And I think that's why my journey went that way. But I think if I didn't have that, it could have gone very differently. And that's kind of what spurred me on to help, other women, because I know that the information is just not out there enough.
What is the main lack of information? What is there that you feel is really critical that's not being said while going to these, prenatal appointments?
Yeah, I think two things really. The main two things would be connecting nutrition to health outcomes, but pregnancy outcomes, actually, fertility. It's all really important. It's really connected, but I don't think it's really talked about enough. Usually when women go to doctors for fertility issues, it's more about them. Okay, what drugs can we get you on? What, like the mechanics of it, that there's no kind of asking, what are you eating? What's your lifestyle like? And definitely they don't talk about environmental toxins, which is the other thing. So food, lifestyle, number one. And then, environmental toxins is also super, super important. It's not talked about. It's really, really, it makes a big impact on fertility.
I kind of find that distressing in outcomes, because it really does. And I kind of find that really distressing from my perspective, because obviously there's a difference between us, even though we study together. But, I know that back in my day, I was having, my history of recurrent miscarriages and then a stillbirth. And I would have thought that by this stage, and given the amount of time that's passed and the amount of research that proves that, compromising food actually do make a difference, that there are certain supplements that if you're lacking in, so make a difference. And bizarrely enough, I had no idea that I had an MTHFR SNP, which means that I can methylate. And methylation is obviously the way you absorb your B vitamins. And I wasn't absorbing folate. Now, I mean, that's a really crucial thing.
Yeah.
That would have
been. It's all about root cause thinking, right? Absolutely. Like there's no root cause thinking on that, in conventional medicine. It's just all about, okay, what can we do about this with drugs and blah, blah, blah. There's no kind of, okay, what's the reason for this? Are there any nutrient deficiencies? Are there any toxins that are kind of messing with your hormones? Like there's not any kind of, it's not the first thing to think of. They don't try and find out what the reason is. And sometimes it can be really simple. A nutrient deficiency can be easily corrected a lot of the time.
Yes.
And a lot of these toxins can be taken out of your environment very easily.
So what kind of
it's frustrating.
Really, I'm sure it is. and it's even more frustrating to think that actually it hasn't moved on since that time. And that's a really long time ago. So it really is quite kind of like, wow, nothing's really changed. What are the main kind of nutritional deficiencies that you find in the clients that come and see you? So do you test? I'm assuming you test for nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah, the big ones are usually iron, B12, what else? Magnesium. Usually there's gut issues. That's usually a big one.
I'm guessing you test for folate as well.
Yeah, for folate, or B vitamins. So, with gut health, I found quite a lot of the time it's really interesting because you get such a detailed picture of what's going on, and you can even see when there are certain species of bacteria that are maybe overgrown, the ones that we don't want so much, and the ones that we're missing that are actually tied to fertility outcomes.
Yeah, so we're talking about lactobacillus bifidum bacteria, most researched ones that generally women who tend to struggle with fertility and general health, really, actually, they've probably had the bloating, they've probably had the gut issues long before they started to want to get pregnant. But you know, there's a lot of research on bifidobacteria and lactobacillus bacteria, isn't there, in the gut, that says that actually that improves your immunity, and it can help with different outcomes of your health. And I think if your health is not balanced, then, you know, trying to conceive is a really difficult thing. I mean, the fact that we get pregnant and give birth is quite a miracle in itself. When you look at the biology and the physiology of it, it's a sort of wow, you know.
Yeah. And essentially
fertilization to, you know, being pregnant.
Yeah. It's all about the body feeling safe, you know, in order to carry that other human being. So if it hasn't got all the raw materials that it needs, you know, to build a human from scratch, you know, it's going to be more of a struggle.
So a lot of the women that come to you, you're doing gut health testing, you're doing blood testing, which obviously I do at Screen Me. Do you find that the majority of the women that you're dealing with are actually deficient in stuff, or is it just a question of checking the balances and saying, well, actually most of them have already been doing some work? Because you talk also to me about your work in preconception, and obviously that's crucially important. It takes to prepare the terrain, you know.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
It's like planting, you know, roses. You need the right soil and you need to feed them and stuff. So before the roses, you know, come up and then grow and bloom. So, and in the same vein, I suppose it's the same with, you know, trying to prepare the terrain for the baby. So tell me a little bit about the preconception work that you do. So you've tested, you found the kind of, you know, nutrient deficiencies and what's in the environment. What's the actual preconception work consist of?
So after we've done some testing, and we can go from there rather than kind of guessing. It's quite good to have that testing in order to have something to work from. So we try and correct any of those nutrient deficiencies with food as much as possible. That's number one. And then if we need to, supplement as well. And we look at environmental toxins. So we're looking at everything that you're putting on your skin, what you're cooking with, plastics in the environment, the water that you're drinking, the cleaning products, the air that you're breathing, everything. So it's, it's very in depth. And I mean, there are many nutritionists that they kind of scratch the surface of toxins, but it needs to be a lot deeper. So we kind of go through all the food, we go through the environmental toxins, but we're also the kind of emotional side as well. So if there's anything that we need to kind of help with that side of things, even recommending other therapies, you know, like Reiki and acupuncture and things like that can really help with things like that. So it's kind of working with the body as a whole. Yeah.
So you're looking at the whole body environment, and yes, there's a lot of evidence supporting acupuncture now. You know, that the outcomes of IVF, for example, 60% higher if you're sort of, you know, looking at acupuncture. What about things? So do a lot of your clients, do they really take the nutrition part seriously? Because a lot of people sort of think, oh, you know, I'll eat this or I won't eat that, or, you know, I just want pizza today, and they go whole hog into the kind of, I'm not going to eat anything that's actually filling me nutritionally nor helping me to actually absorb the nutrients in my body. So do you find most clients follow that instruction quite well? Have they come?
I do actually,
yeah.
I
So
find
to the late stage when they've been trying for quite a long time.
Yeah, so that's usually the case actually. When clients come to me, it's usually their kind of last chance. They're kind of at the desperate stages where they've gone through all these other avenues and they kind of come to nutrition last. But what usually happens is, because there's a really important goal to work towards, and maybe it is their last chance, They're so on board with everything that I recommend. Really turn around their lifestyle and their food choices, and actually working together with their partner is really important. So I'm not just working with the female, I'm working with their partner as well, because obviously they're 50% of the equation, right? So it's super important they're on board too. Like, I think there's a lot of pressure on women, but actually we need to kind of make sure that couples are kind of doing it together, and it brings them closer as well. You know, like they're doing this, they're working towards this goal together, and they're able to cook together and learn all these things together, and they come out with more knowledge. You know, this is stuff that they're going to be carrying on if there is pregnancy and to their babies, they're going to be carrying all of this knowledge on, all of this food knowledge, all of this toxin knowledge. It's so important. So it's not just for this small amount of time and then just be like, okay, we'll go back to normal. It's forever. You know, it's a life change. So that's why I like working with people pre-conception, because that's where the work needs to start, right? Not ideally, in an ideal world, as early as possible.
It's education as well, isn't it, Sam? I think it's a lot about, people might not realize what nutrients are crucially important, or how they impact on the body, or how they impact on fertility, and stuff like that. And so when you're looking at that, the actual education really helps people to realize that there are simple things that they can change that actually will have a massive impact on the outcomes of what they're doing. There's also so much new science around vaginal microbiome, for example. I know quite a bit about that. So talk to me a little. I know Screen Me do testing there, but what have you used that kit? Because there's some really, really extensive research now that says if your vaginal microbiome is actually imbalanced, then the sperm can't get where they need to get to. And
which makes sense, right? We don't think about it really, and there's definitely no testing. Like if you go to your GP, they're not going to be thinking about that. So just like gut testing, I try and encourage clients to do vaginal microbiome as well. Usually things like BV and things that you maybe don't even know are there.
Vaginosis can be asymptomatic.
But it can be it can affect pregnancy. So I think it's another really important test to include.
And
I do try and get clients to do it.
There's a new test, which is the semen microbiome, which supports your view of the couples should work together if it's a heterosexual couple. That the semen microbiome actually can be tested to see whether it's being passed back and forth. Because even if the woman's doing the work with the probiotics and actually that BV under control, if the male is infected, then obviously they're passing it back, and it's a kind of thing backward and forward. So that's a new technology that's come out that's also based on relatively really solid research that says, actually both partners should be looking at what's going on, not just one, which is what you're saying. Do you find a lot of the time the woman comes to you and then it actually turns out to be something that's with the male rather than her?
A couple of times it has been.
And what does that situation look like? Do the men kind of go, so the woman's been trying for quite some time, and then the man is the one who's got something that is preventing it from happening?
I guess it's a surprise, because like I say, there's always the pressure on the woman. It's always kind of assumed that it's down to her. But I've also had women come to me that their husbands are not willing to get on board with the food stuff. They're not interested in that kind of alternative therapy. They're kind of just going to keep doing what they're doing, and it's difficult. So there's people like their husbands that are going out drinking every night and doing all those things, and they think that it's not affecting anything. And the woman's coming to me, trying to change everything in her diet and all the work that we do. So there's two kind of polar opposites. I've had that a few times, so it's quite that's a difficult situation.
I mean, that's kind of really interesting, because I've interviewed somebody recently about the psychology behind somebody who's been in the industry for 27 years, and I definitely refer somebody to if they had issues, but she deals with psychological barriers, emotional barriers that actually prevent people from wanting to put everything they can into, you know, having a child, but also making a child that's healthy and strong by doing the right thing. Preconception, which is what we talk about, doing all those preconception things that will prepare you and your terrain for giving your child the best chance of growing well in your uterus, but also post birth will make that child pretty strong.
Exactly.
So I mean, you know, to have that disparity, you know, maybe that there needs to be a little bit of work done, I don't know, with the men who are kind of going, well, it's nothing to do with me and I'm just going to and going out and eating rubbish, basically. And is there some sort of emotional barrier that actually says that man's not really that interested in having a child? Do you when we come and talk to you and say, do your clients kind of say, oh, well, you know, he's just not doing it? And
I think it would definitely have an impact on the woman's mental health as well, right? Because the other person's not fully invested. And almost having to convince, you know, this is the stuff that's going to be impacting whether we get pregnant or not, you know. But I think it's that education thing, and there's so many people still don't see that connection between nutrition and health issues, which
seems a bit strange, because actually there's so much evidence that proves that, you know, hands and all of those things actually do make a massive difference. So what would you say are the top sort of, you know, biggest things that you would say in terms, you know, with your advice? But, you know, obviously it's specific to the individual. I understand that from a nutritional background too, and you tailor it.
Personalized,
but what are the, you know, if you were to say generically, you know, what are the things food wise that would be really important to look at? What would they be?
So I think my top foods that I try and get my clients to introduce, number one would be liver, which most people are really kind of surprised about especially if I mention it in classes that I do with pregnant women. And to clients that come to me that are maybe vegetarian or vegan, and they kind of do a 360 by the time they leave, right? So liver is number one, because it's almost like nature's multivitamin. It's kind of got so many of the nutrients that we need for fertility. Like it's one of the things that you can see traditionally has been used in so many cultures around the world. They knew instinctively, you know, that these are prized foods for these times, these life-changing stages. Liver, it's really high in B12, iron, choline, fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A. It's actually shown, I think, around a third of all women are deficient when they go into pregnancy of vitamin A. Vitamin D, E, K, like all of those fat-soluble vitamins, it's really high in. And actually on my Instagram, I put recently, there's been a study to show the most nutrient-dense foods in the world. And liver is number one again. So it's always the thing that I recommend. And I think it's quite hard for people to get their head around, because it's something that we've moved away from. We're not doing nose to tail eating anymore. You know, we've come from, you know, my mum and dad would have been told, you know, in the 80s, 90s, take all the skin off the meat, don't eat, you know, any fat, take away all fat.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
And all those kind of liver and all that sort of thing were kind of like frowned upon. So it's kind of bringing that back again.
I mean, those
And actually,
are something that's fascinates me, and I'm kind of that is the old traditional way of eating, and you know, the pudding. Do you find that your vegetarian clients will then go towards eating liver just for that period of time, or do you find that they really reject it? In which case, what do you do?
So interestingly, even the vegan clients, sometimes they'll come to me and say, yeah, I'm vegan. I've been vegan for however many years, but I do really sometimes crave pate. I've had that a few times where they're like, I really want pate. And I'm like, well, it's your body telling you, like, this is what I'm going to be telling you to eat. It's number one thing. Like, this is your body as well. You need to listen to your body telling you that this is what you need. And so maybe they kind of introduce a little bit into their cooking, so you can't really taste it. You know, like not necessarily to go from like being vegan to eating, you know, a full-on piece of liver. I can't even do it like that. I need to like blend it up. I need to put it in ice cube trays and kind of add it to my cooking and hide it that way, right?
There's lots of ways of doing it. Even if you don't like vegetables, you know, you can hide vegetables food for children and stuff. So that's the liver's the top. And then what are the other two kind of that you would say would that, you know, people should really consider in that kind of walk?
So oysters is another one. That's kind of the seafood equivalent of liver. So that's also really high in things like zinc, B12, lots of nutrients that we need in oysters. But I would say in pregnancy to have them cooked, just because it can be foodborne illnesses. Just that kind of tiny risk there that you don't want when you're pregnant.
You know, these are the things that people wouldn't commonly eat. And so, you know, it's kind of like re-education and saying, well, you know, you should be considering eating these things because they are crucially important. And B12 keeps coming up as well as folate. So you kind of greens and stuff like that are also really crucially important. I'm assuming you would include those. What are the 3 low tox you know, sort of reduction of toxics around the environment that you would recommend generally, just as in not specifically but generally?
So number 1, I would say phthalates, so things like fragrances. It's one of the easiest things that you can get rid of, right? So we don't need perfumes, we don't need scented candles, air fresheners, all these things that, you know, we don't need in our lives. It's kind of we kind of think that we kind of associate it with we associate smell with certain memories, or, you know, like creating a like an environment. Like, you know, in the winter we want to have that kind of Christmassy smell, or, you know, pumpkin spice and all these things. Which I get, like, you can achieve that with essential oils, right, which are not in any way disrupting your hormones.
You use those, don't you? So
I use the Terra essential oils.
Yeah, we'll you know, maybe you can come back on and talk a little bit about how scented oils help as well. So it's kind of phthalates, and then you've got, what are the other 2 that would be kind of a quick, easy win?
So plastics to be aware of. So usually things that you're eating your food out of, you know, like storage, plastic containers, these are all going to be containing BPA. And what I always say to clients, because marketing is very clever, where they'll say BPA free, because they've kind of realized that consumers are kind of on it now with BPA. But often what happens is, so these kind of water bottles and lunch boxes and all these things that say BPA free, usually they just switch it out for something that is very similar, like a BPF or a BPS. It's still a bisphenol, it's still got the same properties, and actually sometimes these are worse than BPA, and they really affect our hormones. So that's another quite easy thing to get rid of, right? You can kind of replace them with stainless steel, or what's that? Glass. So these are the things that you have in your environment daily. You know, it's just a little bit of perfume, it's just a little bit of plastic, it's just a little bit of
relation
but it all mounts up. And actually with hormone disrupting chemicals, it doesn't work in the same way that you have to have a large amount in order for it to be detrimental. It's actually these small daily doses, hundreds of or thousands of daily doses. You know, it's the things that you're putting on your skin, that you're inhaling, that you're eating from. So yeah, it's super important, but these are quite easy things to get rid of.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is cookware. So getting rid of the Teflon. So the PFOAs that we want to avoid, these are also endocrine disrupting chemicals, and they're found in things like all these non-stick type cookware. And actually now it's a similar thing with BPA, right? Where they're getting quite hot on their marketing and they'll say PFOA free, but it's still non-stick. The thing is, PFOA was actually phased out years ago, I think 2008. But there's thousands of chemicals in that family, and what they can do is similar to BPA, where they'll just replace it with something very similar. It's got the same properties, it does the same thing, but you think that you're getting something that's non-toxic. So it's so frustrating because they're getting around these things. So just literally just go for, again, old school food, old school ways of cooking, cast iron, stainless steel, avoid the kind of, there's like these ceramic kind of coatings that are PFOA free, but they don't even have to disclose what's in them. That's the thing. There's all these kind of laws around it. Again, they're getting more clever with it. So just go for something that is literally just cast iron, or just
old fashioned. What
and it will last forever.
Used to use, basically.
Yeah. So like the cast iron pans that your grandma used, you'd still be able to use now, right? If it's looked after, like it would last forever. But like a Teflon pan or a ceramic pan, they won't. They're detrimental for the environment, and they're detrimental to us as well. So kind of need to just ban them.
Just kind of like summing up. So some fantastic tips. Thank you so much. I mean, obviously, if somebody wants personalised and tailored advice, then they're best to get in contact and work with a practitioner that understands what they're doing and can give them personal, review their life and review what they're doing, actual personalised advice and plans. We've got about 3 minutes left, so before you go, can you just tell me a little bit about why you find it so rewarding? So in a couple of sentences, what is the most rewarding part of what you do?
Most rewarding part, I guess, turning people's lives around. It sounds quite dramatic in a way, but it's a dramatic change. You're changing their health. You're when there were pregnancies for people that thought it wasn't going to happen, and obviously the changes that you make, it's going to be going through to their children and their children and their children, right? So I think that's what I find the most rewarding, that it's going to be helping the wider family,
future
generations. Exactly. It's so important. We can't just kind of live in this normal of most of us with some kind of chronic issue, which is kind of normalized now, but
well, let's hope
there's lots we can do.
Yeah, well, let's hope that all the work that we're doing in the nutritional therapy area and is helping. And obviously, always go for somebody who is registered, as opposed to like yourself, like myself, somebody who's registered with a proper organisation, rather than somebody who claims to know about food and really doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, the TikTok nutrition coaching,
I mean, that's just something that I'm saying, for general public, check whether they're registered, check whether they're insured, check whether they've got proper qualifications behind them. Sam, it's been a huge pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your information. Obviously, you've given
Welcome to Fertility Matters with Golnish and Lucas on the UK Health Radio. And here we discuss all things fertility, from cutting-edge science to medical interventions and traditional holistic medicine, from preconception to pregnancy and beyond. Let's start our fertility journey on the world #1 Talk Health Radio.
Maybe we'll have a chat about that and how they can help. In the meantime, take care.
And you, thank you very much for having me.
I will speak to you soon. Bye everyone, and thanks for listening. We'll see you at the next show.